Welcome to 30 Minutes of Faith. We're very happy to have Sister Libby Hernandez with us from Sacramento, the Loaves and Fishes, doing a really good work. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, John, and I want to thank all of Interfaith Service Bureau, too.
You're doing a really good work. Were you born and raised in Sacramento?
No, I've only been here about 30 years. That's pretty much most of my life, but my parents retired out here, and my dad and my mom, they live here in Sacramento, and they're from San Francisco, and they pretty much went to Catholic schools all their life, and then my dad joined the military. And so I've been traveling for the first 20 years of my life from base to base, place to place, seeing the world.
And so you were raised in a religious home.
Yes, very, very.
Happy home?
My parents raised us really well. I'm one of 7 children in a 9-year span, so it's pretty much like a Catholic family. We went to church every Sunday, went to religious education, really had a good faith-based structure that I didn't realize was instilled in me until I became an adult.
Where do you fit in the siblings?
I'm one of 7. I'm right in the middle.
Oh, one
so
right
I
in
have
the middle.
3 older and 3 younger.
I'm the third of 7 children. I've got 4 brothers and 2 sisters. It was fun to be raised in a larger family. You learn to share and care and get along. It was fun.
Well, it was pretty fun in the military too, because we moved so much. So when we left the base and went to a new base, we had an automatic football team. So we learned to play with each other until we found new friends.
Did you have a favorite place you lived growing up? One of those spots?
Oh, yes. I think Klamath, California. It's just north of, San Francisco area, way, way up there, off of the redwoods and the ocean.
Beautiful.
And it was just a wonderland, and we really kind of were able to hike in the woods, go to the beach, learn some Native American traditions from the Klamath and the Yurok Indians, and really felt God was there in the midst of the woods.
And you still hike?
Oh yes, that's one of the things I enjoy doing the most on my free time. I hike, I backpack, I bike along the American River. I just love the outdoors.
And we live in a beautiful world.
Oh, it's a beautiful world.
We live in such a pretty place. There's so many things to do. Now, what brought you to becoming a nun and working at a place like Loaves and Fishes?
Well, it's a short story, but it is my story. And I think I've always been instilled with God very young. My parents, I really give them a lot of credit for raising us with God always at the center of our lives. And going back to my favorite childhood area, Klamath, I remember, at age 11, being on the beach by myself and just singing praise to God all by myself and thinking, I have a friend in Jesus. Probably the song was popular during that time in the early 70s, but it's really rung true to me, at age 11, that Jesus was my best friend, that God was the center of my life. And I just loved life and God and creation. So growing up, I've always had this desire to serve. And being in the military family, it came natural that I wanted to serve in the military. So I actually joined the United States Air Force after I left high school and was accepted into the Air Force Academy as one of the first women at the Air Force Academy. So that was late 70s. So I was there at the U.S. Air Force Academy from 79 to 84. And I really wanted to serve my country full-heartedly. But God was always the center. So when I was in the Air Force serving, it dawned on me, well, how can I serve God even better? And the idea of serving God full-heartedly as a religious nun was an option. And so I pursued that. And I've been a Sister of Mercy now for 22 years. And it's just been a delight in my life because I have the opportunity to have God at my center as part of my ministry and my life. And coming to Loaves and Fishes was a fluke because my parents retired out here And I didn't know anything about Sacramento. And so I was looking on where can I serve, how can I serve, and a priest from Sacramento Food Bank, Father Madigan, said, well, why don't you go check out those nuns at Loaves and Fishes? So I just stopped by, and that was back in '85. Loaves and Fishes just started back in '83. And I came to volunteer, and some of the sisters were there already serving. And I said, you know what? I can do this work. I can serve. I can do the works of mercy, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, shelter the homeless. And so it really inspired me to pursue that lifestyle. And as soon as I graduated in my master's in social work, I entered the Sisters of Mercy in 1990.
I've met your mother out at the village on North C Street. What was your parents' take when you announced you wanted to become a nun?
Actually, they're pretty thrilled. They were very thrilled because both my parents went to Catholic schools in San Francisco. And in the Catholic tradition, generally, one of the siblings are offered to God to become a religious. And my mom thought it would definitely be one of the boys would become a priest. So she never envisioned one of us were thinking of religious life. And I never thought about it growing up. So they were very thrilled that I wanted to pursue a life in following Jesus as a nun.
Let's see, I want to jump back to Colorado Springs, the Air Force Academy, just a second, because I've worked out there myself in the Garden of the Gods and all those other places.
Yeah.
Did you get to hike and bike and backpack in that area?
Oh,
while you were there?
absolutely. Pikes Peak, Garden of the Gods, the Rockies. That's where I really learned how to survive. In fact, part of the Air Force training was survival training, and we spent 3 weeks in the mountains there as a group, as a team, living off of the land. From berries to onions to cutting and chopping up a rabbit for survival. So we really learned to understand how to live in the elements, the cold, the wet, the nature itself. And again, being in the Rockies, being in Colorado, brought God even closer because there's something about God in nature that it just brings my whole being alive beyond the everyday.
As we've talked before, I too am Air Force, and I spent some technical training in Lakeland, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And on the weekends, we'd chase everywhere we could go and carve our initials in the quakey trees, for which I'm not proud now, but at the time it seemed like an important thing to do. Nature really brings to life many of the inner feelings and things that we share. Now, what are you doing specifically at Loaves and Fishes? What are some of the specifics besides the broad statement of we're feeding the homeless?
Yeah. At Loaves and Fishes, I've been there 12 years as an employee, and I'm the executive director overseeing 14 programs geared to serve homeless men, women, and children. So we're a really large village, a complex for programs. So every day, Monday through Sunday, we serve about 675 guests each day for a hot meal. We have a school for homeless children called Mustard Seed School. We have a day shelter for women and children, a place where women can get showers, get hygiene items, receive social services, try to get into shelters at night, try to get all the resources they need for the day. We have a men's shower house where men can take a shower, get clean, set of clean clothes, be refreshed and ready for the day. We do about 200 showers a day. We have Friendship Park, which is a beautiful private park, and we ask that all men, women, and children, and of course the children need to be accompanied by their parents, that when they're there, that they respect each other's space with the values of no drugs, no alcohol, no violence in this environment. We have 90 benches in the park, so it's a place where you can go during the day to receive services, have a safe place to be if you have no place to be outside of your tent or off the river or downtown in the alleys and doorways, and wherever you're homeless at night, you can come here during the day and be. And then you can access services, including a fresh bathroom, which are hard to find in the public. And in the park, we have resources, we have free telephones, we have health services, outreach offices, housing specialists, a lot of activities and events that people can access while they're here and while they're homeless in Sacramento. And then we have various other programs, from kennels for our homeless pets. We have mental health. We have a branch of a clean and sober program. We have a library, just amazing. And we have one small nighttime shelter for women with mental health issues.
How many children in a typical day would be down there at the village?
Really, there's not that many. For Sacramento County, there's over 6,000 who are considered homeless in the school system, and we only see 30 children at the most who fall through the cracks. So we actually go to the hotels and the motels and the different shelters where children are not enrolled in school yet, and we bring them to Mustard Seed School, try to stabilize their environment, try to find out where their families are, what do they need to get into a shelter, into a more affordable, stable housing, and then really work with the children to enroll them back into public schools. So on any given day, it's about 30 children.
In your opinion, why are these people homeless, the majority of them?
Oh, you know, there's so many reasons why a family's homeless, why a single man or woman are homeless, and mainly it's because of the economy. It is very difficult to maintain employment or even disability resources that will allow you to afford rent. And so we need a lot more affordable housing in Sacramento. And it's not just for those who are homeless. We have a lot of people in Sacramento who are on the edge of barely able to pay their rents and maintain their housing. And so we have a Section 8, which is a HUD voucher for families to receive affordable housing at a third of their income. And there's 30,000 families on that list waiting to get some sort of assistance in rentals. So housing is a big issue. Affordable housing in Sacramento is the answer and the key to ending homelessness here in Sacramento.
And are we going to do that in Sacramento?
We're going to keep trying.
Good.
We have different nonprofits like Mercy Housing, Sacramento Mutual Housing, Lutheran Social Services. There's a bunch of nonprofits who cater in providing affordable housing with special services for the families, single men and women.
So you not only have to be a Sister of Mercy, you've got to be a pretty good businesswoman, sounds like.
Well, for Loaves and Fishes, it's a great business because not only do we have 14 programs in one little village, we also have 90 employees. So we really do help the employment force here in Sacramento. And we have 1,000 volunteers who come through Loaves and Fishes each month. And so our workforce is strong, our volunteer base is strong. We are a business, and we want to, be the pride and joy of services for our poor and homeless here in Sacramento.
Who decides on the menu?
Well, it's a great menu process, and so we have a menu that we arrange every month, and it pretty much stays the same for the last 29 years. So, for instance, the first Thursday of the month since 1983, we have served taco casserole for 1,000 guests. That taco casserole is prepared by Sisters of Mercy and Mercy Associates to serve each day, to serve once a month, the first Thursday of the month. So we have probably 100 different Protestant churches, a couple dozen Catholic churches, our Islam community, our Jewish community, our Sikh community, and even the Rotary Club that serves a meal once a month. And so we rotate it, and pretty much Each group gets to choose their menu, and most of them pretty much keep the same menu once a month for the last 20 years.
Are there many Sisters of Mercy who have been working there together for 15 or 20 years, and you have good friends and people that you admire?
Absolutely. Now, I've been a Sister of Mercy for 22 years. The Sisters of Mercy came here to Sacramento in 1857. So we have a long tradition of hundreds of sisters coming here to Sacramento, starting with the Gold Rush era. And I live in a community of 4 sisters, and we share our meals together, we pray together, we do a lot of mercy, spiritual events together. And we have about 80 sisters here in the Sacramento area, and we have over 3,800 across the United States.
Are you a shopper?
No, I'm not a shopper. In fact, I appreciate being a nun, and we take 4 vows. One is a vow of simplicity. And so that really helps me to hone in on appreciating what I have and live very simply. So even wearing a uniform at Loaves and Fishes, we wear simple clothing, and I could wear this jacket all week long and no one will notice it, So I don't have to worry about buying clothes or shopping. I just like to live simply, basic food, shelter, and clothing.
We have lived that way in our own family, sort of he who needs gets, and otherwise, you press on. In that community of 4, do you cook?
Yes, I have to cook. I don't like cooking. I like to eat. But we share cooking, and my cook night is Monday. And I'm a vegetarian, so generally a little bit of fish and rice and potatoes and fresh vegetables. And of course, Sacramento is just full of great, great vegetables and fresh fruits.
I had a hobo dinner last night with about 15 different vegetables and potatoes. It was really good. Where will you be in 10 more years? Is this status quo and you keep doing what you're doing, or what will be different 10 years from now?
Well, it's that's the adventure and the mystery. I like to ask God every day, where am I today? How am I doing today? Where will I be tomorrow? It's kind of like, every day is a new adventure, and I listen to where God wants me to be. And so far, it looks like I'll be at Loaves and Fishes today, and maybe tomorrow, and maybe 10 years from now. But I really want to be open to wherever I am needed in the community of mercy, in the community of Sacramento, and where God is moving me towards. I am a social worker, so I really value being with people, doing social services one-on-one, being present, being passionate, and really instilling the path that Jesus led for us to find eternal happiness on earth, so that we can find God on earth and in heaven.
Just last night we were talking about after Jesus had entered Jerusalem and they'd had a Passover meal, and family and friends and he were just going to walk up toward the Mount of Olives, just supper's over, let's take a little walk, and then all those other things, only to have Judas and the Roman soldiers be there and to be betrayed with a kiss, which is awfully ironic. Being with people is the highlight of life, is it not?
Oh, it is. Being alive, to be able to breathe, enjoy the beauty of life, the goodness of it all, but understanding that with goodness comes suffering, comes death, come pain, come loss. And that's part of life. And to embrace that, even the suffering, is an honor to be able to do that and live it and understand it, that God is the center of it all.
That's a nice way to say that. When you interface and talk with people who particularly are homeless, do you find some who have really good attitudes and some who don't?
Almost. That's why it's really interesting to meet someone who's homeless, who has no home, who has no job, who might be suffering from mental illness, depression, even schizophrenia. Their root, though, is goodness, and their sense of faith is strong, and it's a very raw faith. There is this real openness, no surface and hiding who they really are. It is who they are, and they express it. And they're the first to say, I'm so blessed to be alive. Even under their circumstances, I am blessed to be alive, and to share that in their faith. Very faith-filled.
So most of them are God-fearing people.
Absolutely.
That's quite refreshing.
Yeah, and that's why, and as you've shared with me before too, to be able to live your faith to day in a ministry and actually get paid for it is a blessing. And so I can talk faith, I can talk whatever faith any guest has, whether it's Protestant, Catholic, Jewish, whatever their faith base is, or even Buddha. You want to talk Buddha? Let's talk Buddha. Because their faith is worthwhile to listen to and be and express together.
Do you have a feel for what goes on in other American cities that would be similar to what you're doing?
There are some programs, probably in every town, that is faith-based, that really want to live the roots of doing the works of mercy, doing the works versus the faith. And that's where I get my energy and heart from, is not so much the words, but the words in action. And I look for them across, across the United States, San Francisco, St. Anthony's Foundation, all the way to Father Joe's Village in LA. I think there's a lot everywhere, and it's really kind of fun and fascinating to connect the faith-based organizations.
A couple of the interfaith things that fascinate me that I want to ask you about is we all believe we're children of God, but sometimes we don't get along very well as siblings.
Mm-hmm.
We all say Sacramento is a city of great diversity, and yet in truth we want to focus on similarities and not differences. And yet we want to have personalities. I listened to a presentation the other night where a man talked about his tribe or her race or whatever else, to have another man say, but we're all just of the human race. That's what we are. Do you see the great distinctions of tribes and races and creeds amongst the homeless people?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's fascinating, is that you can have a village of 1,000 poor and homeless men and women together, and there's such diversity. Some are Native American, some are, like I said, are from our Jewish community, our Muslim community, our Protestant community, and yet they can find some similarity to share and not fight over it, just be and to learn from each other. And I think that's why I love working at Loaves and Fishes, is because many hands make light work, and all of these hands are so diverse, even amongst our homeless.
If you had 1,000 people out there at one time, what would the ratio be of men to women?
It's pretty much like everywhere across the United States. It's about 75% men and about 25% women. Mm-hmm.
And do the women get respect and that from the men, generally speaking?
Oh, absolutely. And whether you're a man or a woman, mentally ill or have drug and alcohol issues, I have found that there are guests, we call them guests, that will have your back or try to support you and find you and help you in your greatest need.
Now, we're coming up on our Power of One, which is our annual gala event where we pay honor to people in our community who do good works, oftentimes doing good simply for good's sake, with no reward or benefit beyond there. And you're one of those this year, for which we are grateful and appreciative. What does it take to be a good person and be of some influence in the community?
I believe being present is powerful. So whatever you're called to do is to continually be there, be present, and committed.
Good answer. Now, I like to ask at the end, if you could wave a magic wand to fix or repair or change something in the world, what would you wave your wand in favor of?
Mine goes back to God, that each of us find the God within and spread it to the next person.
Pass it along. It's pleasing privately to be a God-fearing person, I think.
Oh, it's absolutely the answer, and I really appreciate being here because it gives me an opportunity to connect my God to your God.
Well, thank you for your example. Thank you for leading out for good. It's appreciated.
Likewise, John.
Okay, thanks for
Thank
coming.
you. God bless.
Thank you, you too. See ya. The profiles of various faith leaders in our communities are highlighted each week on an RCC TV original production called 30 Minutes of Faith. The diversity of the 1,700 congregations in Greater Sacramento are widely and clearly defined at 30 Minutes of Faith, as lives, their faith, hobbies, families, and congregations are discussed and reviewed. If you want to learn about interfaith in a quiet setting of laughter, sometimes with tears and always with a devotion to God, this is a good place to pull up a chair and settle in for 30 Minutes of Faith.